Thank you for tuning into the Guy Dawson Show at the World Center of Broadcast Media, WCOBM.com. And we have a message line. If you have any questions for me or Bear as we talk about a host of topics over the course of the next hour, just type in some information. We'd love to talk back to you. We're going to be touching on a lot of different things. And we were off air a couple of minutes ago. We started talking about relationships. So this is a little bit different. Usually on the show, I have the girls here, and I kind of just sit back and I let the women talk about what they're looking for. We had a couple of weeks ago, we had a show about that.
Okay.
And I had Raquel and Juan, and I sat back and I asked them what was it that they were looking for in a relationship. And so this kind of goes in a little bit of a different direction because we'll talk about things from the male perspective, and you just hit on something off air a couple of minutes ago that I think is really important.
To be honest, what's up? Why doesn't anyone ask how we're doing? Seriously. I know, growing up, we've been taught to look at life like the man should be a man and you should go out there. But keep in mind, that's really just been a phrase because most men aren't really taught how to be men. Becoming a man really is how you adapt to life and what you do with your life. It's about how you invest into yourself despite what anybody else thinks or feels. But if those things aren't encouraged by the people that you're supposed to love the most, that's supposed to have your back unequivocally, then how can a man truly be a man when there's more time invested and the emotion of the relationship than the encouragement and nurturing of the assets that create the whole? There's got to be a balance, and without it, we'll never be even. And without it, you guys will never be happy, and we'll never feel satiated. So we have to meet somewhere in the middle so we have a greater understanding so we can move forward together. And all we're asking for is to be noticed.
Yeah, I think it goes along with what you were saying in the last segment about being a good listener. Mm-hmm. And when you really listen to a person, and guys are guilty of this. Obviously, it's talked about a lot how guys are not very good at listening to the needs of women. The other side of the fence is very rarely talked about, and you touched on it. It's the listening, and it's really listening to understand what a person is saying. And I don't think that really has is gender specific, is being a listener and someone who truly wants to know what that other person has to say. Both sides, we could probably do a better job of that.
Absolutely. And I think if we took the time really to learn each other, when we talk to each other, rather than have a thought in our head, we should have a clear mind. Because really, if anything that you wanted to say is that important, it would be there right after you said what you had to say. If I always say, whatever you're thinking about, if it's not there by the time the conversation was over, the initial conversation is done when you're listening, then it wasn't meant to be said. Because if it's important enough, the content of the information will still be there. If you couldn't remember it, that means it wasn't worth remembering, therefore it wasn't worth sharing, which means it's better off that way anyway. See, there's a reason for everything, and if we allow ourselves to engage in life fully and listen to what's going on around us as things are happening, I think we can evolve much faster. We allow people to tell us what we can't do, so we built up these perceptions about ourselves in our heads and through life and through the things that we watch and the things that we see on TV. Like we have been groomed to think combatively about ourselves. And men have been groomed not to really care about anything else but creating a means and just getting some kind of comfort from just life. And then we bury ourselves in alcohol and drugs and things to numb ourselves from these pains, when all we have to really do is just decide what we want and make a conscious decision to have these things and move our energies in that direction. And you can have anything you want.
Yeah, I think it's really another key aspect of this is having other guys who can really talk to you at different levels other than the guy level, you know
right.
what I mean? Because we have...
we got this bravado going on. Up front, you're like, oh,
guys
hey.
will keep that going on forever.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, a lot of times, it's just a mask for other things that are going on inside of a person.
Wait. Perfect example. Sorry to cut you off. Perfect example is you have if a guy has an issue, like for instance, a guy and a girl has an argument and they have a problem, and the guy kind of storms off and goes out with his friends, and the guy's with his friends, the guy's like, dude, what's wrong? Yo, the girl's tripping, whatever. Let's go get something to drink. Let's go do this. And then it just cuts off. So all this emotion and rage is being filtered through booze, drugs, party, and these these reckless behaviors, rather than being, hey, hold on a minute. What am I not hearing? Time out. What are we missing here? Is what we should be saying, but what's actually happening is something else. So let me just run through this really quickly. So after this guy goes out and does that. What a woman does is she goes back to her friends, and she dispels, and then they engage in a thought-provoking conversation about that situation. So by the time she comes back, she's armed with very well-versed palette of things to go over. She's well dressed with the sauce and everything. The dressing is there. We come back obliterated. We come back in our shame, and then we come back kind of defenseless. And then what happens is we get repressed and a little bit more just introverted in the relationship, because now it feels like this. No one likes this feeling, like that pointy feeling, like words can point to. And it's not what you say, it's how you say it. A man can take anything if it's given with respect. Women need to be loved. Men need respect. If those boundaries are spoken to, then everything gets better. Everything. Like, it's impossible for things not to be better. And when men feel respected, they're on top of the world. They can do anything. They'll give anything. And you encourage them, you tell a man how much you love him or how beautiful he is. It's just like really accept him for who he is and encourage who he is, and let him uphold that aspect of who he is. So you have to empower a man to be a man, because we need to be coached the same way you need to be encouraged. Like, in that regard, like, his dress is beautiful. You look beautiful. It's good to see you. We feel those things the same way you feel them. And if you give that to us, we can give you anything because we feel appreciated. But without it, how can you possibly ever feel complete?
Yeah, you were talking about basically group therapy. Mm-hmm. Women do a lot of group therapy, where, as you said, guys, we hang out in groups, but it's not therapeutic. I mean, there's some guys that you can
deeper than group therapy.
To.
It's the conversation. Think about if you have a concentration of conversations over a year. Girls meet up 3 or 4 times a week, okay, over the course of a year, you know what I'm saying? And all their conversations are concentrated around productive stuff for the most part. I mean, they talk about fashion and shoes, but their conversations for the most part are pretty constructive. Like, women are pretty savvy. That's the reason why they're not that they're cunning, it's just they're better groomed and educating themselves in how to than we are. It's all about where you put your energies. You can be anything you want to be, and people always ask me, how did you? I was like, well, I'm just being myself. I'm just trying to be the best version of it. So I'm constantly learning. I've made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I'm not perfect. I definitely have my fair share of mistakes, but it's also how I got my fair share of wins, successes. You got to fail. You got to fail to win. You have to.
Yeah, and I mean, there's really no such thing as failure.
Yeah, failure is education. What people know as a failure is it's just steps.
That's part of the process.
Yeah, it's like that process took maybe 27 steps. That one took 37 steps. It's part of the process, you know what I mean? It's not a failure, it's a step. Like, that you didn't just fly out of the Wright brothers didn't just fly. It took a few steps. But it all started with an idea. Everything that you're touching, looking at, tasting, this TV show, everything that we have right now, it's all off of what we created in our own mind and made it a reality. You can have and create anything you want. Even down to the vivid details on this microphone. Like, this didn't just come from anywhere. These things are incredible. But until we can be appreciative of the things that we have and encourage each other to do more and envision more for ourselves, we'll never be.
Yeah, we're going to take another short commercial break, and when we come back, I want to get more into the healing aspect of what you do
Absolutely.
in your actual business and your lifestyle, because I've heard some things about these hands, and you're going to hear more about them too in just a couple of minutes. We'll see you in a few minutes with more of The Guy Dawson Show.